Everyone, thank you for joining today. My name is Brittany Cheatham. This afternoon, you're going to hear from our attorneys. You're going to hear from our plaintiffs, President Denisa Maxwell. You're going to hear from Ms. Denisa Mashburn, Iana Santia, and Veronica Aguilar. We'll also hear from Caitlyn Swain, co-director of Forward Justice, and our co-counsel, Ms. Ronald and Porter, and we'll take questions at the end. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Caitlyn Swain, co-director of Forward Justice.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. We're at 4 o'clock today. For the rest of this week, we think that we'll be hitting our 5 p.m. time. We're out here in the rain, but we are feeling good. This was our first day of a renewed trial fighting to eliminate the injurious SB 824 discriminatory photo voter ID law in this state. This law has already been overturned twice. We are here again in this week to let the court know that the people of North Carolina are deeply concerned about a discriminatory law going into effect in 2024 that has just now been in effect for one primary and one municipal. Today in court, Judge Biggs heard from some of our clients, leading voices in the state, asking for a reprieve from this discriminatory law. She heard from Deborah Dix Maxwell, the president of the North Carolina State NAACP, who spoke strongly and firmly about the need to take action to ensure that voters are not confronted by barriers without any justification in this state that will cause otherwise eligible voters to lose their right to vote in North Carolina in 2024. She also heard from other incredible witnesses today who spoke about their work on the ground all across the state of North Carolina, seeking to help people overcome these barriers. But those witnesses also affirmed that their work has not been able to be enough to overcome the barriers and burdens. What I want to do is make sure that you can hear from one of the voters today who was not able to speak in court, but who herself has been denied the right to vote because of the photo voter ID law. I'm going to bring her up now to be able to share her story.
Good evening. My name is Denisa Mashburn, and I'm here today because my vote was discounted because of the photo ID law under Senate Bill 824. It is disheartening that my vote did not count because it feels like my voice doesn't matter. I'm originally from Costa Rica, came to the U.S. on May 2nd, 1982. When I came to the U.S., I came for a better life. I lived and voted in Vail, North Carolina for 15 years. The last week, we moved to Cherryville, North Carolina. I graduated from Lincoln High School in Lincoln, North Carolina, attended Lincoln County School of Technology, where I received a medical assistant certificate. I also went to school for medical management at Catawba Valley Community College in Hickory, North Carolina. I was a few classes short, but in 2011, I returned and received an associate's degree in criminal justice with Lakenet Evans as a specialty from Gaston College in Dallas, North Carolina. As you can see, North Carolina has been my home. And what's happening here should be a concern to all North Carolinians. When I came to the U.S., I knew I needed the right to vote, and I did everything in my power that ensured that that was possible. The process was long, and it was expensive. The first step in obtaining my right to vote was becoming a permanent resident. To become a permanent resident, I needed a sponsor, which was my husband at the time. I applied for the conditional residency and held that for the required 3 years. After the 3-year period, I successfully applied for the condition to be removed, and I was sent a permanent residency card, which is also known as a green card. Once I had my green card for 3 years, I started my application for citizenship. Many people stop at the permanent residency because they have all the rights a citizen can have, with the exception of the right to vote. But that wasn't enough for me. I needed the right to vote. I had an interview with immigration officers who made sure I was fluent enough in English. I also would go for biometrics, which included fingerprinting and background checks. Every time I went, they had to make sure nothing had changed, that I was not a threat to the U.S. At times, I felt like I was being criminalized for seeking my citizenship. But I was determined to endure the process for the right to vote. It took a lot of tests, written, oral tests, and tests to ensure that I had ample knowledge of the U.S. government. Throughout this process, I had to pay for everything. The biometrics was $85 each time I went to the office, and that was required of me every 6 months until I came to my final interview and was sworn as a citizen. The entire process cost me around $10,000. That was a huge sacrifice. A sacrifice I especially made to have the right to vote. The right to vote.
Yes.
As an immigrant, this was not easy. Getting a job was not automatic. We had to apply for the right to work. We had to wait until that was approved to work. I had to pay $1,000 just to begin the first set of applications. If I wanted to travel abroad, you had to pay for that application as well. I couldn't afford much outside of the process, so that was not an option for me. I'm proud to say that I received my citizenship December the 18th, 1998, and I have been voting ever since. I didn't want to be just in the U.S. and be in the background. I wanted my voice and my vote to count for something. When I learned my vote didn't count because of the newly passed photo ID laws required by Senate Bill 824, I knew I had to be here today. When I went to vote on the 2024 primary elections, I knew North Carolina was in the process of changing and requiring a voter ID. But I never received any phone calls or any information about it. So I wasn't clear until I got to the polls and saw the sign that said photo ID required. Although I am currently employed at Lincoln County Schools District, I am on extended disability and unable to drive. I didn't realize my license had expired until the poll worker looked at my ID and said I couldn't vote. It was my normal voting location. My ID had my name, my address that matched the records. The picture clearly looked like me, but it was expired. I had never had issues voting before, so I was shocked that my ID wouldn't work. A second poll worker did overhear the first worker telling me I couldn't vote, so she came over to try to help. The second poll worker walked me over to a separate table, to the provisional table. A second thought, we thought we had it figured out. But then she started flipping, fumbling, ruffling through a book and the process, and wouldn't allow me to vote. Everything seemed very unclear. At one time, she even said, "I guess this is what I need to do."
We're going to stop for 1 second because we can tell that the rain is coming down and we want to make sure that you are able to hear us. We're going to try to move at least underneath this overhead to ensure that you hear the story and that it is not, we're not distracted by the rain. You're doing great. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to.
Okay. I got it. I don't know where you're going.
Is everybody close enough here? More or less? Right. And if you want to take it from wherever you want to take it out. Thank you all.
When the poll worker took me to the provisional vote stand, for a second I thought we did have it figured out, but then she started flipping through papers and fumbling through a book, trying to figure out the process that would allow me to vote. She didn't seem confident, and she didn't have a clear understanding of what she needed to do. At one point, she even said, "I guess this is what I need to do." At this point, she didn't seem confident, and neither did I. She gave me a provisional ballot and marked the form that my ID was expired. I voted on the ballot and brought it back to the poll worker as instructed. I wasn't offered a photo ID exception form. I didn't even know it was an option for me until I learned about this case. Nothing was explained to me. Forward Justice called me and told me that my vote didn't count. That's how I learned. That's when I learned I was supposed to get a non-expired ID and bring it back to the County Board of Elections for my vote to count. But no one in the county called me. North Carolina is my home. I've lived here for more than half my life. I am very disappointed that our legislators are trying to block our votes. If this happened to me, I'm quite certain it's happened to others. We should be checking that our votes and our voices count. We should be raising our voices against the photo ID law and SB 824. We have a right to vote, and if we take time to vote, North Carolina has a duty to make sure our votes are counted. As citizens, it is our duty to vote and to make sure to elect people who are competent to hold office, people who won't pass bills that suppress our votes. Despite me being nervous today, I was committed to telling my story. I am committed to voting, and I know it is my duty and it is my right.
And next we'll hear from Ms. Iana Santia about her experiences.
Hey everyone, my name is Iana Santia and I'm the Executive Director of El Pueblo. And by now we all know that immigrants play a vital role in shaping our economy, enriching our cultural tapestry, and fostering innovation and diversity in our communities. There are neighbors, colleagues, friends, and family members who bring unique perspectives and experiences that make North Carolina a vibrant and dynamic place to live. However, despite their immense contributions, immigrants face numerous challenges and barriers, one of which is navigating a complex system that often fails to accommodate their needs adequately. For many monolingual Spanish citizens within immigrants communities, language barriers present a significant obstacle in accessing essential services, understanding their rights, and participating fully in civic life. Adding to these challenges are voter ID laws that further exacerbate the difficulties faced by monolingual citizens. These laws, often introduced under the guise of preventing voter fraud, disproportionately affect minority and immigrant communities, making it harder for eligible voters to exercise their fundamental right to vote. The requirement to present specific forms of identification at the polls can create confusion and obstacles for those who may not have access to the necessary documents or face difficulty understanding the process due to language barriers. As a community, we must recognize the importance of ensuring that every voice is heard and every vote counts. We must strive to create an inclusive and equitable society where all members, regardless of background or language proficiency, have equal opportunities to participate in our democracy.
And next we will hear from President Maxwell of the North Carolina NAACP.
Good afternoon. I have a great respect for the rain because along with rain brings thunder and sometimes lightning. But I am thankful because of possibly washing away some of the sins of the ancestors in the state of North Carolina who thought voter discrimination through voter intimidation by these repulsive ID laws, which took only since 2018 to come to this day to be in court. It might be that those are crying. These laws, as you've heard the testimony of the young women, they are repulsive because they show a racist tendency to try and erase the votes of people who have something called melatonin in their skin or are marginally impacted within the state of North Carolina. Make no mistake, the evidence shows that clearly, that this is something that is done to dissuade voters in North Carolina. I implore you to look back at the legislature and the Board of Election and see if they've done anything to implore and encourage people to vote instead of making discouraging laws, discouraging policies, using Google to translate something. That is a no-no for those who speak Spanish. We know better. So we need to say we are tired of this. We will be here every day in court. We thank our partners who are here. We thank Forward Justice for being here. And we know that eventually the wrongness of this state, the wrongness of these laws that discriminate against people who are unable to vote will end one day, and it will end someday. And we wish for you to carry that out and help us get that message out. Thank you.
And next we'll hear from Kat Robles with Forward Justice.
Hi, everyone. Kathleen Robles, attorney with Forward Justice. I really just want to thank everyone for coming out today, particularly Ms. Mashburn. This case is about her. It's about the voters. It's incredibly disheartening to hear that someone spent thousands of dollars and years of their time to be a citizen and to get what is their constitutional right to vote, and they didn't get it because they had an expired ID that looked just like her, that served every purpose it needed to serve. And I want to thank her for taking the time to be out here because it is a burden. Just like this law is imposing burdens on people who cannot bear them. Black and Latino voters in this state are going to have the toughest time with this law. They disproportionately lack the IDs that are needed. If you look at things like suspended and revoked licenses, there are over 1 million people in this state with those right now. You cannot use that for voting, even though it looks just like you. A Black North Carolinian is 4 times more likely to have one of those IDs. It's very clear what this is about, and it's not about election integrity. The legislature told us we needed this law because of in-person voter fraud. Let's look at the numbers. In-person voter fraud is a statistical 0. We're talking about 2 cases over 12 years, over multiple election cycles. But what isn't a statistical 0 and what is a real person right in front of us is Ms. Mashburn. There are over 700 people like her that didn't have their votes counted in 2023 and 2024 because of this requirement. That is only in person. That does not count absentee voters. There will be many more in November. They will be disproportionately Black and Latino, and we are here standing for them.
All right, at this time, we're done. Thank you all for coming. Do you want to know questions? All right.
We would take questions, but we have to actually get some things on file with the court, as you all heard today. But we will be back here tomorrow and for the rest of this week. We will be hearing from legislators. We will be hearing from other witnesses who are directly impacted. We invite you to come back and stand with us as we are getting this message out in the courtroom and in the court of public opinion right now. It is so important to lift up the voices of those who are otherwise feel silenced in this time in North Carolina, who have the right and have us standing with them to vote in this 2024 election and beyond. Thank you all very much for working with us today with the rain as well.
Thank you all so much.
Could we have the first and last spelling of the first woman that spoke?
Oh, Denisa?
Yes.
You could just say it right there on the mic.
Denisa, D-A-N